Welcome into Head on a Swivel. I'm Chris Hayes along with Scott Green. We're glad you're with us tonight. Got a lot of things going on. The main thing right now, the portal is wide open. It's kicking like a pack of ninjas. And right now, what does Georgia do licking their wounds after the Sugar Bowl loss to Ole Miss? Got a lot of things to talk about. Stick around. We'll be right back. Georgia Sports Autographs is built by collectors for collectors. They know what fans want because they've been in your shoes, hunting for that perfect piece, the right signature, in the right spot. At every signing, Georgia Sports Autographs make sure it's done right, using the proper ink, following best practices, and paying attention to every detail so you end up with a product you'll be proud to display. They've already worked with many of Georgia's top athletes, and their network gives them access to just about anything you can imagine. If you don't see it listed, don't assume it can't be done. Chances are they can get it for you. Georgia Sports Autograph tests themselves with every event, always improving, always delivering for the ultimate addition to your collection. Trust the team that treats every autograph like its own. Georgia Sports Autographs, where every signature tells a story. Scott Green, my friend, how are we doing this evening? Happy New Year to you and your family. How are we feeling this evening, my friend?
Happy New Year's to you and all the fans out there. Actually got a lot of time on my hands. I'm not going to be tuning into college football for a minute, so I won't be absorbed by that. But doing all right. Obviously, really disappointed. Hate that a Sugar Bowl is a curse now, even through Kirby Smart's tenure. A lot of questions, not a lot of good answers right now. But again, it's kind of like being a rich millionaire looking up at the billionaires kind of situation right now. But we'll see what happens.
It's really kind of a bad taste in your mouth. Also, too, with the uneasiness of the portal opening up. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of athletes across the nation, not only in FCS but FBS as well. I mean, the amount of kids that are in the portal right now is just madness in free agency that's going on and taking place, and it really gives the college fan a typical uneasiness, as I just said, where you just sit there and you look at a team that we really felt like that it was young as it was, playing with basically 90% of its recruits, playing with one of the youngest actual tenured group out there. I mean, playing with almost 50% underclassmen. We know what we've got coming back, but there was just sort of that emptiness that you felt after the Sugar Bowl loss, considering the fact that we really, as UGA fans and as the people who have watched film and broken things down, really thought we had a good opportunity to win that Sugar Bowl to take us to the semifinals against just an unheralded Miami team that all of a sudden has just burst onto the map with Carson Beck, and obviously the storyline that went with that. So, the Cinderella story was not necessarily exactly what we wanted. The glass slipper didn't fit very well, but there's something that I want to talk about from the game, and we're obviously going to get some insight, just a couple of things offensively and defensively, because we are a week removed from the game now. So obviously, I know as fans and people who want to break stuff down, heck, I just got the defensive stuff out yesterday, offensive stuff the day before that. So I'm very objective. I know Scott, very passionate, very emotional. If you were with me on our live show, it's very easy to get caught up in the game itself. And, I tend to be more of just the even kill. But I had no problem with Scott and understanding that, he was hyped up when things were going well and obviously questioning things were going wrong. But, talking about the game itself, I'm really excited about Pete Golden himself. I think he's doing a great job. 2-0 versus an 0-2 Kirby Smart here in the last, as far as what he's got going on, two playoff wins this year, where Kirby Smart has been taken out after a bye week each year. And, so he's sitting here looking good after what Lane Kiffin left him. But, there's something I want to talk about here. As you know, the game finished 39-35. And if you watch Pete Golden's mouth right here, he is basically saying belt to MF and ass is what he says right here as he gets out. Now, I'm going to say this. This is an emotional sport played by emotional players. I have coached the game and I understand the emotions that go into games, especially big games like this. I am proud for him, honestly, for what he has done and what he has accomplished with all the scatteredness that he's been dealing with. And of course, going against your team that you're a fan of is obviously leaves sort of a bad taste in your mouth. But I'm really kind of concerned about this whole belt to ass concept. We've watched Michael Irvin do it with the Miami group. And, I don't know about you, Scott, but back in the day when I got my ass whooped, it was one of those big, pull the tail up and pow, 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 pow. And what I feel like an ass whooping is basically going to be something, unfortunately, that Alabama had to witness in the Rose Bowl. Do you think this BTA, as they're calling it now, is seemingly something that is being just hyperbole and now being used for every team? To me, I got so much kickback on this, Scott, you would not believe it. Can you believe that there was people insulting my intelligence and calling me an old man and get off my lawn mentality, let the kids have fun and all that kind of stuff? And I'm like, guys, it ain't got anything to do about having fun. I'm, in fact, happy for this football program. I would love to see, in spite of what Lane Kiffin did, them leaving them high and dry, to see Pete Golden take them to the national championship and win it, leaving Lane Kiffin there, sitting there holding his hands up in the air. But still, though, all these people that just called me ignorant, Scott, can you believe that? Because I don't want Ole Miss to have any fun. The BTA, though, man, is being overused. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, Georgia beat them in the same way that they beat us. That's what makes it heartbreaking. So I wouldn't say the first game was belt to ass by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, a fourth down call with a 245-pound running back is what made the difference, and scoring on every offensive possession is what was necessary to win in Athens. And I mean, credit to Ole Miss fans. They wanted it more than the Georgia fans. Obviously, they showed up. I mean, they relatively made it as much as a bowl game can be and a playoff game can be. They made it a home field environment. And look, here's the thing. Honestly, if it had to be any fan base, it would be Ole Miss, simply for the fact of, and I think they would admit this, the last 3 years have been the most successful their program's been, or most relevant. And it's not
even seasons over the last 3 years, no doubt.
And it's not even close. I love it for Pete Golden. I mean, I thought that their staff outcoached our staff in terms of what happened, having them in execution. Obviously, in tandem with that, Trinidad, having an outstanding game. But in no way was that a dominant win or dominant performance by either one. I think it was a real back and forth. Obviously, there's some things that Georgia did well and was dominant in a certain stretch. And then Ole Miss did to Georgia what Georgia has done to so many teams, which is in the second half, they outperformed them and it wasn't close. And they really did. But to be honest with you, it is overplayed. I get it. You beat a team, you want to say BTA every time and every chance you get, especially because it's the Georgia team that that kept you out of Atlanta. Then won the SEC, and then you get to see him again. And to be honest with you, I think Ole Miss was just the better team, better in execution, better in terms of physical dominance. I think they obviously wanted to get that revenge. But I mean, 6 yards is the difference between Georgia having a lead late, 3 50-plus yard field goals. So that's a third of your points. Obviously, the safety, I don't think anyone's legitimately going to include that. Obviously, it's in the final score. I get it. Ole Miss fans will probably, again, they don't beat Georgia too often outside of the last 4 years. So, and I'm not an all-series kind of guy, so I'm not bringing that up. But again, That's just credit to Ole Miss and who they've been. And again, just the story with Lane Kiffin and like you said, him leaving, and obviously Trinidad being a D2 player, then gaining the spot really due to a mixture of turnovers and injury to Austin Simmons. I mean, it just shows you how fickle and how amazing the college football game is. But yeah, no, in no way it was a belt to ass. Again, Georgia beat every team it played this year and still found a way to lose in round one playoffs. So to me, it's kind of one of those things like, yeah, you can say it, but you, in your heart of hearts, it wasn't belt to ass. It was biting fingernails and praying to God and sacrificing whatever you had to sacrifice to win that type of game, especially against a team that had killed so many people in the fourth quarter, and you prevented it. I mean, they just did an amazing job.
I agree, and I'm going to hit on this really when we get to the part where we're actually talking about next year's program and what we feel like sort of the bad taste left in the mouth from this year's program as we go forward. But, I think there was something, too, that was sort of a misnomer and kind of misleading, is that when we left the SEC championship game, we really felt on both sides of the ball we were clicking. And there were some good things that we were seeing because there was consistency and rhythm that was taking place. And when you take a whole month off, I'm realizing now the whole month completely rustified all the offensive rhythm that we had. Defensively, missing Gabe Harris on the edge, I think, was a huge key factor. And unfortunately, in the game against Alabama, Malachi Tolliver and Rashawn Dinkins and DeMello Jones didn't necessarily, DeMello maybe a little bit, didn't get exposed the way they did against Ole Miss. I found time and time again when there was mistakes getting made, it was to the side where JJA was at, or it was something where Rashawn Dinkins was in the coverage. He was the leverage guy. He was the man-on-man. If you think about it, 2 of the touchdown scorer, Rashawn was covering the guy man-on-man. He caught the touchdown pass, and then he got held on the outside, which I'm not going to complain about, but he got held on the outside and was your contained guy on a play as well. But, there was those little things that you saw that we have been noticing, the clicking that had been taking place. It seemed like we were playing faster. We were moving more fluid. I saw a defensive line that was gassed standing up when the ball was snapped on 4 or 5 different snaps. There was a lot of things that just looked out of place, almost like we had sort of gone back in time to week 5 or week 6, where we were still seeing that scatteredness that was driving us nuts on both sides of the football. Most people are going to say, well, it's just Schumann's fault, it's Bobo's fault, it's whatever's fault. But I think if you look at the biggest issue on hand was time. Time was, I think, the key culprit and what hurt us the most, and it ruined the rhythm. It ruined all the fluidity I think that we had established over time. And going back to what I'm saying, kudos to Pete Golden, Ole Miss, all you fans out there, the one or two that might catch this podcast on the backside of this, or the flip side of this, I salute you guys. I'm not crying about the fact that y'all won the ball game. I am a Georgia fan. I'm a fanatic of them, but also too, I'm one of those that appreciates good football, and I witnessed some good football on this past week on Thursday when I watched Trinidad Chambliss make some unbelievable throws when he had to make them, wide receivers making catches when they need to make them, making the pivotal down when they needed to do it, and they just had more plays that Georgia could defend and take care of. So, kudos, my hat's off to them, but still not belt to ass. I was going to go through this real quick and talk to you, Greeny, about as we look into the offseason. Right now, the portal is rampant, and we'll be talking about the portal here in just a few minutes. But I wanted to just get your insight as Coach Smart takes the offseason, and I'm sure he's having, he's in recruiting issues right now where he's recruiting his own roster. We heard, today Raylan Wilson is coming back. We're expecting a lot of people to probably make announcements to be coming back. But still, though, nonetheless, I'm sure he's having coaches meetings right now with individuals coaches. I know I would be, because you're trying to evaluate what's your next plans. What do you want to do to get better? What's your objectives this year? How do you feel like you accomplished the things you wanted to accomplish? And, I sit there and think to myself, one of the biggest keys is obviously at the QB position. I know the quarterback position was sort of seemingly an issue of just every game. It seemed like we were going back and forth with a ping pong match. Hey, we're seeing improvement here. Oh, we need to see this here. Oh, we look great here. Oh, we need to have this here. It seemed like you come to the end of the year with a Sugar Bowl, and again, we're questioning ourselves about 14 at the end of the ball game and his offensive performance and obviously what took place. But as you look at Kirby Smart and staff and you look at the team itself, what's some thoughts that are coming to your head right now about maybe not necessarily changes, but just any kind of transitional things that you think would be good for the program as we move into the 2026 year?
I think it's critical for people to realize how much of a loss Zachariah Branch is and Colbie Young is. I think they were amazing pieces to help facilitate Gunner early and often. I mean, Colbie Young really was his reliant receiver when it mattered the most, especially in the short game, and that's man or zone. And just want to harp on something too, guys. This is I'm not trying to be downer dog here, negative Nancy, but just don't anticipate, even with a lot of people coming back, that we have a similar season to what we had this year. There may be things that are much more beneficial. There may be things that are more ready, but again, guys, there's critical pieces leaving that have to be replaced. Now, good news is Kirby Smart's willingness to open up the coffers to get someone like Zachariah Branch and also to bring his brother on. But in terms of returning bodies, just really critical to have the running back room where it's at. I'm really, really happy with that. I am happy that we return a quarterback with experience, but as much as I'm a diehard Gunner guy, not simply for the fact of he's wearing the Power G, he's wearing the red. The dude is willing to die on the football field for you. Everything could be going wrong around him, and he is not going to flinch. He's not going to do anything. But the problem is, what is good, and what is not good enough is not good enough. So when it comes down to it, 3 things have to happen in the portal. You have to get a wow receiver on top of an X receiver to help the young guys out. I like CJ. I like Taylor. I think they'll be good. But with what's going on right now, especially in their youth, you have to get experience, guys. The second thing is, okay, defensively, how are we going to adjust to make sure that transitional period is cut down and minimalized? Because we can't have the same slow giddy up that we had throughout the season, the back and forth. And I think that's got to happen with analysts from the outside. Something I've really, really one it harped on with all the people that I keep close and talk to football with is, look, Georgia's got a very good to great staff. It does not have the best staff in America. I know Kirby Smart's got to say that. That's part of the game. But we have to start reaching out and using those NFL contacts to get a lot of young analysts, because they have made the most untold impact that we don't think about. We just, kind of put it as a footnote in our mind. Oh, that's cool. Analyst so-and-so is helping out offensive line. Analyst so-and-so is helping out this. I think they should be planted in every single room that we can fit them in and pay for them. And the third thing ultimately is, look, again, I'm not saying it will happen, but unless some major shifts and moves happen, I could see us going 10-2. I don't see a 9-3, anything like that. I'm not going down the whole bucket, but there's a lot of good teams on the back half of the schedule that are returning a lot of good pieces. And in fact, they may be in better shape than us if we don't start really moving and shaking in the portal, which time will tell. I'm not going to harp on the staff stuff with these three, but I'll definitely tell you my thoughts on that. But really, that's what it is don't overestimate and underestimate. Find something in the middle and say, look, this is what's a benefit to having Gunner back, the running backs, hopefully Freeling, not having three freshmen on the offensive line in a critical game like that. So there's a lot that went wrong for Georgia that could have made a difference, but too bad, we'll never know.
Yeah. I think Micah Morris is probably the only one we're going to lose off the offensive line. I have some kind of feeling in my gut that Monroe Freeling and both Ernest Green are going to come back. And when you add Monroe, when you add Juan Gaston and Dontrell Glover and what we've had at that particular area, of course, I think Drew Bobo is another one. He's NFL draft eligible, but I think his injury is going to set him back to where I think he'll probably come back for another year. I think the main thing is competition, because there's so much parity today in college football that I really want to try to understand the fact that if you're going to have freshmen that are going to go out there and play ball, that are going to basically go out there and do it, I'd rather see just those small mistakes, because even though I called out Rashawn Dinkins a while ago, Rashawn Dinkins had hell of a lot of good plays too. And I'd rather win or lose based off that kind of growth and seeing a freshman that's going to come in and play well to, say, a paid sophomore who's not necessarily getting it done per se, like maybe Janelle Aguero. I hate to use that, but he's a paid tenure player that's now going into the portal, and I see that these guys that are below him are pushing him out, very similar to what happened with Dumas Johnson with the linebacker core a couple of years ago. So it's kind of that same principle that we're being seen, and I think that's going to happen more, and that's the reason why, to me, the inconsistency of calling out and saying, hey, we're going to have a 10-2 team next year, or we're going to have an 11-1 team. Hell, I don't know what we're going to have next year. I honestly do not. If you told me right now to pick, it would be like throwing the ball out on the roulette table and just calling a number and a color and just picking something, because I really don't know what we're going to have. It seems like with everybody that we've got coming back, losing very few people to the portal. I do agree with you on the wide receiver people, but I think we've got a very good core group of kids coming back. When you got London Humphreys, I think Sokovie White-Hilton is someone people don't think about at the slot position very much. I think what you've got with Talon Taylor, Todd Blackshear, there's a lot of guys out there that we're not thinking about that they have brought up and hopefully can grow through this offseason and be that core group that establishes themselves. But I'm definitely in agreement with you that maybe 1 to 2 possible receivers can do that. But I think the more transitional guys you bring in, they have to learn the system, i.e. Dominic Lovett, Ra Thomas, when they came in, it was the same situation. We didn't have the same pull, it seemed, in the wide receiver core, because those guys were still learning the books. They were still learning the playbook, and I think that sometimes causes a little bit of a setback. I do agree, though, that Kirby Smart has got to adapt. There's one thing I've always said is that if you're not adapting, you're dying. Mm-hmm. He's got to adapt to a way that gets consistency out of the coaches that are coaching, because there's one week where I'm thinking, is T-Rob and Dante Wilson and Williams getting the complete value ceiling of their defensive backs out of the secondary and the safety and the corner position? Or all of a sudden have we seen a regression because they've been brought in and started coaching based off when coach, the one that went to Syracuse, why am I losing his
Frank
name?
Brown.
Yeah, Fran Brown, when he left to go there, I mean, there was obviously a fall off, and I know this not because of the level of talent we have back there. I mean, we got DeMello Jones we're talking about KJ Bolden, we're talking about Ellis Robinson. I mean, it's not like we're not dealing with premier athletes, 4- and 5-star kids that have proven themselves, and all of a sudden they're not playing up to their potential. I mean, so that's something that's got to be evaluated very hard. I don't really know what we're going to see in the offseason, but I do know there needs to be a little bit of a shakeup, something that creates more dynamics in what they're looking for. And it's eventually going to get to the mindset where Kirby's got to put his foot on the freaking gas and quit worrying about the control method of what he's doing defensively. I think it's one of those things where he feels like his defense can't be exploited, so he sits back off the offense. He tries to basically methodically move down the field, lessen possessions, things of that nature. I would really love to see us open it up, get to that vertical threat, have those guys that we feel good about down the field. And Gunnar Stockton has got to get better throwing the ball in zone windows. Pete Golden loves to run in the zone. He ran a lot of cover one, but he did also run a lot of cover three and mixed and matched those different coverages. And when it came to it, Gunnar had a hard time throwing the balls in the windows of zones, and that's something that he's got to get better at. He's got to live in the pocket a little bit more, not necessarily live and die with his legs, buy time by keeping his eyes up and making those throws in the pocket. So who knows what we're going to see as time goes on, but I do know there's got to be some dynamic shifts this offseason, whether it be bringing more people in that you're talking about from the stand-up of looking at NFL analysts that can come in and help. Because like I said, to me, the way you get better is you look at people that are having success in programs and you go find out what they're doing and you figure out a way to emulate that, bring that back, reteach it, and get your guys on the same page. And that's how you grow as a program.
Yeah, and 1,000%. And again, just going back to, Pete Golding, understand, Georgia's offense was perfect against them. So there's that motivation there to just be hyper proficient and hyper prepared for that team. And that's a great question by the commenter there. I don't have the answer. And again, the only thing I think you can do is bring in as many great football minds as you can and plant them in one spot. And I'm like you, Coach Dante. This great recruiter, elite recruiter mentality, and then very good has to die, because the margin of error, especially when you get into the playoffs, starts dying off with it. And those things start getting exposed. Same with T-Rob. I think the safety play has not been nearly to the degree we have seen with Coach Muschamp and Kirby in combination. I think Glenn Schumann's a young coach, so I'm willing to eat some of those mistakes if we see improvements, especially in critical downs and distances. I'm sure Glenn, being as smart as he is, especially Kirby Smart, in a 3rd and 5, we're not going to find ourselves in a weird cover one situation where the trips has just got the whole open field. And the reason why I bring all this is, to me, this is the minimum change necessary for us to continue talking about, okay, we're competing for a title every single year. One, that's insanely hard. I guarantee you no program's going to be doing that outside of really Ohio State and Georgia now. Now Georgia's tripped itself up. It's got 3 years without a playoff win. And that's the other thing in addition to it, Coach, is just like you're saying, is there has to be a shakeup, because even though Kirby clearly wants to control, protect his defense, make sure that his defense is set up for success, he's going to have to change his mindset in a big, big way to step back. And really, I'm not saying we have to go get Todd Monken, but Todd Monken, and I know this on good authority, had a willingness to tell Kirby, shut up, it's my call, it's my offense. Trust me, you hired me to do a job. And you need someone to do that. And Mike Bobo, again, very good. People who call him bad have no idea what they're talking about. But as an offensive coordinator, we need someone who's got that willingness to look at Kirby and say, we'll march it when I say march it. We'll throw it when I say throw it. And it just is what it is. And butting heads is a good thing. I mean, Nick with Lane, that was such a huge radical shift in Nick Saban's mentality when he had all that success. Because it was just a heavy bruiser ball, push it down. I'm going to mush you with, big backs and just lean on you with a big offensive line and only throw it when I really have to. I mean, the world's changed from that. And some of that's good to keep. A lot of it's not. But again, I'm not trying to disrespect any of the receivers we have here. I absolutely agree. I think there's a ton of potential talent. But I think like you said, by having those experienced guys, you have it's a pro and con. The con is, like you said, new system. You only have spring, summer training, and fall camp to get ready for it. Obviously, Gunnar having those issues, you want someone that's in tandem with him. So that's another question mark. But the pro is you have someone who's played those games, 40, 60 snaps, who's been in those big moments, hopefully, and has made those plays. And you can use that to build on. And with how much we rotate, I think that would be a great answer. The other thing defensively is edge. And that's the other mindset change. That's why I think an NFL analyst who could and I'm hoping Uzo's been saying this, is, Coach, look, recruiting power edges is great. We cannot get to the quarterback with 4. The way you've built this, Coach, we can't do it. There is no answer. Zayden Walker is an answer, but him being in on 3rd and longs, that completely handicaps me. If first down, a really good offense like Ole Miss manage to get that plus 4 to 3 yards and put them in a great situation on second down. Because now I'm fighting with one hand tied behind my back.
Yeah.
And like you said, JJA is just not it yet. Maybe he is. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope they all do. But there's got to be a lot of changes just in terms of defensive mentality and mindset and methodology, and same on the offense. But part of that, like you said, is keeping that dynamic rhythm. And that's why I love having NFL guys on, is because they've been there and they've done that.
I'm going to sit here and answer this question because I think I have an answer to it. How could a coach keep the rust off with a long layoff? First off, you reset the playoff infrastructure and you set it up to where you're playing week by week by week, and you're not being interfered with the NFL weekends and all that kind of stuff after the Army-Navy game, where you're still playing the national championship game by the first week of January, and you don't have this long week. That's the reason why I think you're seeing a 1-7 record now over the last 2 years with the 12-team playoff. Indiana, just you happen to catch in a buzzsaw situation. But, talk about belt to ass. That was a belt to ass game, by the way. All right. Versus my Ole Miss fans who didn't think that was versus us. I'm going to say this. No matter how chaotic you can make practice out there, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing that you can do that reproduces game reps. And I'm sorry. That's the reason why rhythm is so important. If we had gone back out right after the SEC championship week and had a game the next week, I think we see a completely different team. I think we see a lot of rhythm on offense. I see a defense that's clicking, but you take a week off, a month off, conditioning changes all of a sudden, no matter how hard you're saying your practice, you could tell it. I watched it on film. The film doesn't lie. Our defensive line lined up tired in a lot of the offensive series that Ole Miss was playing, and we were running X stunts and just running right into the wall and playing patsy. I'm going to say this. We have got to find another interior tackle opposite of Elijah Griffin. Elijah Griffin, we have got to put the four walls around him and lock him down. He is going to be our elite interior tackle talent for the next hopeful 2 years. And we've got to find somebody to complement him at the other two eye position. And it could be McLeod. It could be, Josh Horton, but I didn't see enough on film this year that just makes me think we can run an X stunt and run into a block because you scheme it that way. But Elijah Griffin actually can take on a base block, shed him, get rid of him, and go make a tackle in the backfield. He's the only one right now that's shown me consistently that he can do that, and we need someone to complement that in the process. I was going with 225 girl right here. She was talking about Kirby and Bobo need to evolve offensively. Bobo-style play calling doesn't fit into the era of college football. He didn't utilize most of the weapons properly, in my opinion. Shu, I think, should be a co-DC. When I look at these things, what I think they get away from is the consistency I talked about earlier. When you're inside the five, what we had gone to, we'd gone to a two-back, 21-22 personnel, and we were running play-action rollout where we have front pylon, back pylon, just like the Roderick Robinson catch for the end zone against Alabama. I think Alabama, unfortunately, we've got them branded as such a good football program because of their culture and dynasty of what Nick Saban established. I think we got a false positive basing what we felt because we saw Alabama – I hate to say it, Bama fans, was not a good football team. They're not a good football team. And we got a false positive based off the fact that we thought we were playing a good football team when realistically we weren't. Those people, Malachi Tolliver wasn't exploited. Rashawn Dinkins wasn't exploited. DeMello Jones had a couple of bonehead plays, but still not necessarily exploited. We play a good football team in Ole Miss, and all of a sudden that same defense that played back in week 7, week 8 is showing up in the Sugar Bowl game. We're all of a sudden seeing the same knucklehead type plays where but Trinidad Chambliss also, too, putting the ball on point, throwing balls in mailboxes, guys, that he didn't make those same throws when we played them in Athens. So there's a lot of different similarities that we can look at in this situation, but bottom line is they out-executed us, and when it came down to us going back to the things that had made us successful, we got away from it. What happened to the two-back system play action? What happened to the time management inside the 5-yard line when we kicked the field goal that tied, where I look at it this way. It's easy for me to hindsight it. I'm easily this armchair quarterback sitting back here on this chair back here. But what I see in it is like, I want to run as much clock down as I can. They've got a kicker that can kick it to Mars. They got Trinidad as hot as a tamale. And you're sitting there with 50 seconds on the clock and you need a score to win. And I agree with Coach. You want a score to win. But put yourself in a situation where you roll out off play action, make it look like run. You've got back pylon, front pylon. You've got a touchdown either throw. And if neither one of them there, they've got it covered up, run the football and try to get in the zone with your quarterback. That way, if you do get tackled, you're on the right hash, left hash, whichever way you rolled. You let the clock roll down all the way to the last second. You're kicking a field goal to tie it anyway with 15 seconds on the clock, 14 seconds on the clock. That's the difference to me. There's a chance to score, but to me, the time management of that was more of an issue to me than it was necessarily the fact of whether we wanted the touchdown to win versus the field goal. So the big difference in those two things. But the main thing that I don't see is that we run the QB counter tray. QB power on the first play that gets us down to the 3-yard line, and the next two plays we lose 3 yards. I don't understand why you're not lining down in that 13 personnel, that 23 personnel you've been doing all year long and mashing people and getting the ball north and south. I would take it. I don't care that Nate was hurt. Chauncey Bowens can take it downhill. Josh McCray can take it downhill, and you can run power G. You can do whatever you want to do, but we got away from that. We ran zone and zone keep for a loss of 3 yards on the next two plays. And that just, to me, is where all of a sudden that's where I criticize Mike. I fought for that guy all year long because I know what it's like to be in those critical situations and you're trying to think 3 plays ahead. It's tough, but when they make millions of dollars to be tough. And I agree that they've got to have everything in their mindset of what's going to be most successful for us in that situation. I don't question it, but I do question the fact, as you said, Scott, that we've got to look next year for those dynamic shifts that have got to take place where that consistency comes back so that we show the trends of doing the things that made us successful for the year and not going away from those things as time goes on.
And I think you harped on it. So Mike Bobo's worth fighting for with the performance he's had at Georgia, but it's very good, great. And what makes the difference to me from a coach from a very good and great, exactly like the commenter just saying, to me, that's as simple as it needs to be, is not overcomplicating something that's such an easy answer. It's because Ole Miss did do a good job stifling the run and making you waste downs to keep them honest. But when you have 3 yards between you, that's just kind of a man up moment where just go caveman simple and say, look, if you can't get 3 yards, we can't win the game anyways. Trinidad, like he just did, he drove down the length of the field. I thought it was a really set of foolish play calling. And to me, that's the difference between great and elite, is 6 yards, is 3 yards. When it matters the most, in the most important game, who would you want up in the booth making that call? And again, it's unfair. Look, I'm with you, Coach. I was involved in football just long enough to really appreciate how hard a job coaches is and how easy it is to 2020 hindsight everything. But look, there were several sequences in that game I just thought were poorly managed. Buck stops with Kirby. Obviously, I think Kirby mismanaged that. I think, obviously the 3rd and 5 call, I think Glenn was, either aligned wrong or just made a really, really terrible call. And, that's the thing, guys, that's heartbreaking about this is, 21 plus days, 20 days, you get slower. You can't afford to have scheming issues and be out of sync. You just can't, especially against a great team like Ole Miss. Look, guys, Ole Miss has been, to me, the second best SEC team or best SEC team, depending on what week you saw them. Not a lot of people without turnovers just head up beat Oklahoma. Now, obviously, Bama found a way, but that's with all those mistakes and all those silly just head scratchers Oklahoma gave them and reset the game and allowed them to get into it. And look, I get what you're saying. In terms of a title contending team, Bama is not that. I fully agree with a false positive because that's what we're grading ourselves against. I think us as Georgia fans saw the scripted A finally get, true belt to ass and felt like if we can get through this demon, we can get through anything. And again, Ole Miss just turned around and did to Georgia what Georgia's done to so many teams this year. We finally know what it's like to be on the other side of the game. And one thing I heard from an Ole Miss fan I got to say about, which is just so asinine. We choked the game in Athens. No, in no way did you choke the game. Tennessee is the only team that choked the game against Georgia. That's the only one I'll say, okay, yeah, we got lucky there. A little wind blowing, a little, kicker, messing something up. But no one choked anything in either one of these games. I mean, it was just a phenomenal game back and forth, and Ole Miss had those high-level performances in critical spots. And as we sit here as Georgia fans, just remember that too. This is how tight the margins are, and this is the right reason we're being so critical. Some of it's emotion from me, coaches being much more articulate, but my whole biggest thing is, look, I want to remain what Georgia should be and not what it currently is not. And that's it. That's, being consistent and dynamic in almost every single game. Sure, there's going to be Mizzou games. 2022, we had it. There's going to be games like that. But there were a hell of a lot of them this year. And the Georgia Tech game this year was a huge head scratcher offensively. And to me, that starts with the staff and the preparation. Because look, guys, I'm going to be honest with you. If there's not an open quarterback competition, I think it hurts us. I think it hurts us in a big way. And I think Gunnar would be perfectly fine. Again, the dude's willing to die on the field for you. He's shown you that. But he himself would say, if my performance is not good enough, I don't want to be hurting my team. Yep. And so you got to reopen that. And that starts with the OC sitting down and saying, look, guys, this is what it is. And I would have an open conversation, especially with my key players. We had this, back in college, which is, hey, coach, I think this was wrong, this was wrong, this was wrong. Obviously respectful, because he's still the coach at the end of the day. But finding a way to have those conversations, to me, the reason I keep harping on the NFL analysts, because those guys don't really give a shit. They're not buddy-buddy like Mike and Kirby are. They're just going to look at you and say, well, that's stupid, or that's a really good idea, or, hey, that needs work, let's move it to here. So
let's refine it and do here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jeremiah Bailey, I've noticed you were a new follow this past week, Jeremiah. I appreciate you following the show, and I follow you too as well. It seems like you've got a lot of insight with recruiting. This was something I said in my pregame show in what you say here, and I wanted to reiterate this. Make Chambliss step up in the pocket and watch his completion percentage drop. He prefers to be outside the pocket where he can make plays. I completely agree with that. My main mentality is Charlie Weiss Jr. wants to run a lot of RPO, play action, get the ball out in 2.5 seconds. I told our fans and the people who watched the show prior to the game that he was going to get the ball out quick, so don't expect to create a lot of havoc. And if we did give him the 4-second window to throw, we had to contain him and keep him in the pocket. When he stays in the pocket, his accuracy drops. And you saw we did not do that. When he flushed out of the pocket, we made him look like an All-American. On top of that, he looked like freaking Houdini. I mean, it was almost like I was seeing some Johnny Manziel moments, especially on those 3 plays back to back to back, where he just flat out made us look silly defensively because we're chasing him around like it's backyard football. So I appreciate that comment, Jeremiah, because that definitely fits the profile of what we're saying. Guys, I appreciate you guys being in the chat. Those questions are coming through. I'm going to try my best to go back and evaluate them, but I'd like to get to our third segment here as we move forward. I'm a little bit blind, so I might put my glasses on here, but I want to move down. Most of you who don't know who this is Parker Livingston, wide receiver, one of the primary wide receivers that Texas had this year. And all of a sudden, as you know, the portal window has opened, and there's thousands and thousands upon thousands of people in the portal right now. As you know, there's only one portal window. Parker Livingston, who's a diehard Texas fan, grew up a Texas fan. I mean, it's like me, growing up and being a UGA fan all my life, wearing the UGA paraphernalia, and then I get to go and play for my school. This kid was basically, from what it looks like, said, you know what, we don't really need you anymore, so we're just going to go ahead and say you need to probably look somewhere else. And so not only does Parker Livingston leave, he joins the Oklahoma Sooners. So you tell me what's more of a bite to the ass of a guy that's, diehard Texas fan, grew up a Texas fan, obviously playing for his, his program that he loves and adores, and has pride built into the culture of what he loves. Because if there's anybody that obviously is horns up and loves his school, it's this kid right here. But it's gotten down to it, as you know, and we're watching this over and over and over again. I think there's a little piece of every fan out there that's watching college football that their heartstrings are being sort of chomped away at by the way college football is evolving, with the transfer portal, with shared revenue, with understanding the portal and how money is allocated now through the funds. But we're still seeing things that are crazy. For example, you look at Lane Kiffin. Supposedly there's a $3.5 million offer on the table for Sorsby, and it's going to come from outside sources that haven't been even put through the sweepstakes yet for approval of the shared revenue. So you tell me what, we are dealing with such a wide open firecracker. Think about this. It's almost like, to me, I think of it this way. Think if the NFL didn't have a draft, and they basically said, we just pay money to the highest kid. We want to bring this kid in. We're going to pay you this money. Think if the NFL draft was like that. That's basically what we're dealing with. We've got kids on free agency year in and year out. There is no salary cap. If we don't look at the fact of establishing some, what I was trying to think of, a collective bargaining of some sort, and hit a salary cap of some kind with a contract that is binding, and that's what we're seeing with the Damon Wilson situation. Right now, we're not going to see any change in college football as it goes forward. In fact, it's probably going to get even more chaotic as we move forward. Something has got to happen. Your thoughts on the portal situation right now?
I mean, perfect explanation of it. It's free agency with private benefactors. And that is a huge, dangerous conversation. And players have gotten away with pulling out of contracts early, and they haven't been enforced against them. Damian Wilson's going to be obviously presidential case law. in terms of what Georgia's able to accomplish or not accomplish. And look, guys, it's got to stop because one side's just going to totally implode. The portal strands a lot of players. People don't think about that as, oh, this big name, this big name, this big name. Well, there are agents out there, guys, having Zoom calls with 40 or 50 of their clients, talking to staff or, people who are proxy staff, meaning they can get in the ear of a staffer in the middle of the season, bargaining while they're playing the game or, the day before a game, bargaining about, hey, this is what I would need for so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And look, there doesn't have to be just this ingrained loyalty. I understand at some point, even if you like Bo Nix at Auburn, even if you love Auburn, you would die for the dark blue. You go to Oregon because it would benefit you've given that program all you think. The program's not heading in a good direction, so you go to another place. Those pieces I can understand. But what's going on is so much worse. Again, poaching will always be hard to limit because players talk to players and those players build the communication between that and a coach. That's always the bypass to it. But there has to be something established with presidential case law or at least a box to say, look, here's the ceiling, here's the floor, here's the right, here's the left, here's how far forward you can go, how far backward you can go. I think the NCAA got mad, did what Notre Dame did, took their ball and went home and said, look, this thing's going to blow up on you and we're not going to, and you're going to rush back to us. Well, what's worse is it's now the Wild West and now you have to put toothpaste back in a bottle, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And again, not enforcing contracts, guys, here's the real issue. Very few programs can afford to enforce their contracts. Why? Because if I enforce my contract against big name somebody, the next one up is going to be like, well, if I want to change my mind, I can't change my mind. And they're going to come after me. And see, that's the whole mentality to this thing is players feel like they have free reign. Our collective of players feel like they have free reign to just throw the contract out, wipe their butt with it, and go on their merry way with your money. And that's not going to me, it's the lack of sustainability. This cannot keep up. Either the private end, the collectives are just going to start drying up the money and reset the market in totality because these numbers are insane. Jackson Arnold getting $3 million. Zach Calzada getting millions of dollars is unreal and unsustainable. And you can see what happens. Zach Calzada is a total miss. Jackson Arnold, total miss. And that money is still going to come in. And so to me, what's going to start happening is hopefully that box is slowly built, especially with case law and precedent. To me, guys, that's so huge. Yeah. Another perfect example, Madden, Nico's brother, ditches Arkansas with $500,000 in his pocket, essentially. And Arkansas was thinking about recourse, but then they didn't want to hurt their ability to sell themselves and say, look, we're going to come after you if you – and see, imagine, guys, you doing that to your job. And people could say, oh, well, coaches can do this and that. Buyouts happen. They are contractually obligated to do what they're doing. Mm-hmm. It's a totally different dynamic here.
Right.
To me, it's like a contract is a suggestion at this moment. And you have private enforcement through money, not, legalization. And the agents that are family members or family members that are agents and how all that's going is chaotic. You don't even have to be regulated. You can be someone's agent just by shaking their hand and saying, I'm cousin so-and-so. Mm-hmm. I'll get you the most money. And it's got to end. And the reason why is truly because at the end of the day, I do not want the next 2, 3, 4 generations of players paying for what the generation of players is doing now. Right. And it may sound like I'm just an old fuddy-duddy. I get it. But at the end of the day, it's going to be paid back. At some point, it's going to get kicked down the road long enough where the next generation of player who should be worth $1 million is going to get paid squat or get put in such a Loctite contract that they can't make, left or right moves. And see, the revenue share is going to add into it. I'm like you, the salary cap, it's got to be enforced. Because look, if they start paying over under the table, okay, fine, that slows the trickle down. That's the thing people don't understand is the hose has been turned all the way open now in terms of money and funds. And in some way, it's got to get turned down to where it's, okay, we're not thinking just about this next year, this next year, this next year. It's what does it look like in 10 years? What does it look like in 20? Right. Because it's truly dying in the way that we understood it, which was when you commit, when recruiting truly mattered was, hey, I at least know I have you for 3 years. That much I know. Now it's you don't know if you have any of your team. And that's the reason I brought up 10-2 was to say, look, guys, I'm in the middle because I'm like you, coach. I don't know A to Z of who's even going to be on the fall team and where they're going to be at and the mentality that they're going to have. Because who the heck knows, is going to be in the next couple days.
Exactly. To me, it's realized potential versus unrealized potential. And even if you got realized potential, like a Cam Coleman leaving Auburn, I mean, millions and millions of dollars for him for underachieving in a program where the offense doesn't work for him. Wherever he's going to go, it always may seem the right thing to show, but you've got to show him how you're going to utilize him in the offense and how well productively you've shown in the past that you want to throw to the outside receiver. Cam Coleman is obviously a spectacle at a wide receiver and so deserving because, like I said, I'm never going to take away the name, image, and likeness of kids. I think they deserve to get money. I just think they deserve it in the right way because what we're building in this is entitlement that's run from a money-based component. And now you've got donors out there getting pissed off, investing monies in kids that they're not reaping the benefits or the rewards from because the kids come in 1 year and leaving. There's no culture that's being built like we talked about a while ago with Parker Livingston, where you live, breathe your program. That sticker you wear on your helmet, it means something to you. It means to be a part of the culture of the school that you've gone to, and that is being lost. And people like myself and people probably around my generational era, and you included, are going to sit there and say to yourself, that to me is what the essence of college football has been and is what's made us love the game the way we have. And we're losing that mentality because we're being bought out by TV companies that care about the money that's being brought in by television versus making it right for the fans and making it right for the programs and how they do these bowl games and how they stretch them out and how we're talking about a month's layoff cost us so much. And they don't look at that. They don't want to make it convenient for what it's going on to. It's all about the almighty dollar. It's always going to be driven by the almighty dollar. And until they put some kind of framework around it, like you talk about, the four walls around it, we're going to continue to see this chaos as it goes forward. I would love to continue this, but I do want to talk about Georgia's portal situation right now. This is sponsored by Georgia Sports Autographs. Currently, we have 10 people as of today in the portal. We've got Jordan Thomas, Nair Daniels, Roderick Robinson II, Pierce Sperling, Daniel Harris, Andre Evans. New ones that got put on the board today: Janelle Aguero, which was kind of a surprise to me, Bo Hewley, Jaden Harris, and then Chris Jones down at the bottom there. Definitely not certainly last but not least. But when you look at the ones that are going out, we know that obviously we've got to have some that are going on to look for better opportunities for themselves because either A, they're buried on the depth chart or just didn't fit into the framework of what Georgia's wanted them to do. Of so far of this list, and we're going to have more that hit it, definitely. Who's one that right now you're kind of scratching your head about the most?
I'm going to be honest with you. There's not any
There's
that
not
have
one.
me scratching my head because I mean Harris makes sense. Roderick, and again, there's going to be some of these guys I cheer for. Roderick, look, man, again, you get buried just due to injury. I hate that for you. Been there, done that. Jonelle Aguero even makes sense. I mean, Dinkins kind of took the spot and ran with it. I mean, again, like you're saying, is you're seeing similar mistakes from guys who got less snaps. That says a heck of a lot about the guy that has taken the spot. And again, I wish Jonelle the best, but again, that shouldn't, really confuse anyone with what we've seen come out of the last two games. Bo Hewley, kind of, sort of, but again, I think that could spell good news for Georgia. Again, when people leave that were the second or third guy behind, you can always kind of attach that to, well, that raises the potential that someone's coming back. Chris Jones, again, linebacker room is just so stacked. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Bo absolutely wants more playing time because he's not going to get it next year, hopefully, if we keep that good news that we're talking about. So none of them really, coach, that stand out to me.
It doesn't bother me at all either. I know the typical fan that looks at this list, you may have, that's the one thing that's hard about coaching is that you're always going to have kids that are graduating and kids that are coming in, and you develop new relationships with these kids. And there's some that are very special. You develop some insight with these guys. You grow up with them. You watch them grow up. You take them through hell and back. You see some of them pitch fits like little third grade girls when you get mad at them, and then you have to go behind them and love on them and let them know how much you think that they've got a high ceiling, they're going to play well for you, and you're going to continue to work hard. I look at this list. First off, I'm very excited for Pierce Sperling. I mean, this guy was a medical redshirt that was told he wasn't going to play football anymore, and he got medically cleared. So I wish him well going off. But the only one, Janelle Aguero, obviously kind of fit the same concept as, Dumas Johnson did at the linebacker level because of the talent that was coming in behind him. There is no doubt to me, and I'm going to say this, Scott, what I see in today's college football the paradigm of coaching, because so many kids now are draft eligible by their junior year. If you got a kid as a freshman that can give me roughly a 60 to 65% grade, going out practicing every day at 60, 65% positive play, not 60 or 65% of 100 by far, but can go out there and basically grade out at a 60 to 65%, making just small little errors here and there, but playing tough, doing the things you ask them to do. I would much rather put a freshman out there, i.e. an Elijah Griffin, Dontrell Glover, Juan Gaston, Rashawn Dinkins, and let those guys go ahead and start playing than someone who's a paid sophomore, excuse me, or a redshirt sophomore who's not necessarily giving you much more productivity that's already getting paid. And that's the reason why I think you're seeing something like a Janelle Aguero happening right here, and why he's being pushed out, because there's people that are below him that are going to take that job over. And you want that, because to me, if I'm only going to get 3 years out of a kid that becomes a phenom, which I think Elijah Griffin's going to do, I think he's going to have a great sophomore year. He's going to have a great junior year. He's probably going to go get his bag and be in the NFL draft before his senior year. So, that's a kid that I would be playing as much as I can to develop and grow, to give them the satisfaction. And plus, too, that helps productivity. And why you see on stat-wise, Georgia had the most kids that were playing on the football team in the playoffs. Of the 12 teams, 90% of the kids that were playing, that were starting, were kids that they recruited. So that's pretty impressive when you look at those stats. Am I going to take anything away from Colbie Young, from Zachariah Branch? Heck no. That's where you put pieces into the puzzle that make the dream work, that put the cog to the mechanism to make it work. But I'm still not going to be disenchanted by the fact that we got guys leaving, just like we've got some guys coming in as well.
Yeah, and let me frame it this way real quick, Coach, because I think you nailed something. So you pay someone in anticipation that they're going to be a high performer. If they're not a high performer, can we take the money back?
That should be part of the contractual agreement. That's what you and I've talked about, I think, in previous episodes, where if you have a contractual agreement where you go out and say, listen, if you're going to be a starter for this team, see, that's what you're looking at too, because are you a potential to be a starter? If you're a position group to be a 1 or a 2, hey, we need this productivity to you by week 12. And if we don't get that productivity, then your NIL regresses. If you get more, then you get more. It's kind of like you're getting paid for the play. Why not have the potential to put that in the contract? I don't know. I'm sure there's certain terminology that gives the mindset to that. But, to me, that's what I would look at, is like, listen, you got to produce. If you're going to be under contractual agreement with you and we're paying you money from the institution to play under our shared revenue program or whatever NIL deal you have with outside agencies, you've got to produce in some shape, form, or fashion, or that money is going to be taken and allocated somewhere else. So we're going to look at it from the standpoint of who we do actually have in the transfer portal. We actually currently have Khalil Barnes, who is a Athens native. He has actually committed to the University of Georgia. He's going to be in his 4th year of eligibility. He had an All-American freshman year, and not so great last 2 years. He's kind of regressed. He didn't have a very good junior year this year. He got most of his stats built up in his freshman and sophomore year. 7 interceptions, couple of sacks. This year he had no interceptions, no sacks. Basically all his stuff there, as you can see, had 2 pass deflections with 24 solo tackles. They did play him a lot in cover 3 work, which was downhill, playing apex, similar to what Rashawn Dinkins has been playing a little bit. But what I do notice out of him is he brings some, I don't think this guy right here is who pushed Janelle Aguero out. I think this guy right here is to add depth, because we don't know what Zion Branch is going to do. Right now, Adrian Maddox is staying from UAB, and we obviously know we've got KJ Bolden coming in. So this guy, I know that safety is a potential player that we're looking at because of his abilities, but he is an Athens native, grew up a Georgia Bulldog, loved the Bulldogs, was recruited by Georgia, and decided to go to Clemson. Now he's going to be coming back to Athens. Your thoughts there?
I think it's big. Like you said, with Zion, it's kind of a measure of what he's going to do, because one of those safety spots is locked up. But depth at that position's just so critical. I mean, and again, I'm sure if Corey Thomas meets me, he'll be like, oh, you're that talking head that doesn't like me. I mean, if this gentleman's better than Corey Thomas, I think there's ways that you can manipulate the defense and get him better. Again, kind of question on T-Rob's side in terms of the coach DC and the staff change I would like to see there. Again, that's why I want to harp on the NFL analyst, is if this guy's got the physical raw talent, which he clearly does because he did it his freshman year, how do you get him back there? How do you get him back to playing like that, or 80% or 90% of that? Is he being used wrong? Is he being trained wrong? Is he just wrong in certain situations? How do you get him out of that? So I think it's a good get. Safety depth, can't speak of it enough. I'm hoping it's a combination possibly of him, Zion, Maddox, whoever's the better of the second safety or tall safety spot. I just want him to play.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this when it comes down to it, they're going to find the right guys that they need. I mean, if you look at the people that they're potentially wanting to pull in, I know there's the Coleman kid from, not Coleman, but Simmons kid, I believe, the defensive end from Auburn is another one that they're looking at as well. I was wanting to look at this question right here. Any reason Maddox hasn't got any run? I really just think he was kind of buried behind what Janelle Aguero, Ja'Cory Thomas, KJ Bolden. There was a lot of depth tenure, and Kirby has proven that he's going to play his depth of his tenure, the kids that have got more experience over a kid that may be more talented but may not have the X's and O's understanding. Coach Smart's defense is not the easiest defense to understand. They switch so much. It's amazing when I watch film how much I see the differences. They're playing half man and match on one side of the field, and if they rotate, two guys have got to switch their spots and what they're doing. So their roles change from a man on to a man off or a zone. It's amazing the things that they have to do in their changes, and maybe that's why he's just not got the X's and O, the playbook under his belt yet. But I like him. I think he's a solid kid, but he's, again, kind of fits in the same profile of this gentleman that we have here on the screening, Khalil Barnes. The one thing that Adrian Maddox will have, I think, is just he'll have a year of the playbook under his belt, which gives him a chance to compete next year. Speaking at safety, though, this is another one that is potentially, I hate to put these guys up here, honestly, because we don't know what's going to happen. But Jamarly Riddle is from East Carolina. Now, this kid, he's from Camden County, so I know that we recruited him. Georgia recruited him out of high school. Camden County's been a powerhouse for many years. I know they're up and down, but as you know, Elias Williams came from this school. Michael Morris came from this school. There's a lot of good potential down in Camden County and Kingsland, Georgia. I've got a good friend of mine who's the head coach there now. And so I love talking to him and just getting more insight from him. But this kid right here is the real deal from what I've seen on film so far. And his stats have proven too. 2 years of experience, heavy in tackles. You can tell he's a headhunter. He strikes the match very well. Very excited to see us possibly get this kid, another Georgia kid, Georgia native that went to play somewhere else. Obviously, it may have been just depth issues, but that's the reason why you keep opportunities with youngins that you recruit, because you never know when the turnaround is going to happen, that this kid may come in and help us immediately at the strong safety or possibly the nickel position. What you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I've heard good things about this gentleman. And to me, I think that's something that Georgia does really relatively well, probably the best in the nation, is they don't burn bridges unless they have to. Really, the match had to be started on your side of the bridge for them to really burn it. You doing something wrong, going cold turkey, not communicating with your team when they're playing in a quarterfinal playoff and it's the backup quarterback. Just silly stuff like that. There's no real bridges burnt on our end most of the time. Now, sometimes Georgia makes a mistake, and I'll own up to that. But I'm glad that we're talking to someone that's this good, because we're going to need it.
And, that's his stats this year. His stats last year were roughly the same. I think he actually had more tackles last year. He's up to 71 tackles in 2 years playing the safety position. So I like the stats I see from this kid. It's something that's very important for me to see. Chase, I want to kind of talk to you about this. That's understandable. We have not had any consistency at all at the safety position. If you know and seen any of our shows, you know that me and Scott have probably questioned Ja'Cory Thomas and Kyron Jones more than any other position group. In every week that we played, it seemed like every week I was questioning a flat foot scenario where he should have been deeper than the deepest guy. In fact, on the play where Dalen Everett gets beat on the 1-on-1 where Trinidad throws it down into a basket, Kyron, listen, I'm so used to saying his name. Ja'Cory Thomas is sitting flat-footed, not deeper as the deepest receiver. You're in cover 2 man. You're a bracket on that side, and you can't get over there to help your corner out who's chasing on the hip. I don't understand that. It doesn't make sense to me when you're in cover 2 man that you should have a safety over the top bracketing, even an outside mandatory release that you want to get over and try to help. But, I don't think he would have been able to help, but he still wasn't even close to helping because he was flat-footed. By the time Trinidad let it go, he was 20 yards away from the football and should have been a lot closer than he was. And that's unfortunate because, you want to have that safety help when it happens. Lastly, you mentioned it a while ago, Scott. This is our last frame here. getting some extra help at the wide receiver position. Again, even though being at Georgia Tech, was highly recruited for Notre Dame, he's from Warner Robins, Georgia, so down there where Rashawn Dinkins and Isaiah Gibson are at. This year, 33 receptions, 480 yards, 4 touchdowns, 14 and a half per average on his catches. Another kid that comes in and helps maybe add some solidarity to the position itself. I don't know the specs on this kid. I didn't look those up, but I'm not sure what position they're looking at him for. But I definitely say if we're looking for anything, we'd probably be looking for outside position players due to the fact of Colbie and Noah no longer being with us. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a guy like this with this build is huge for what we need. I mean, to me, what we're going to have to do is try to replicate Zachariah Branch in aggregate, which, good luck. A lot of that was explosive plays. I think the tight ends are going to have to get a lot more love. But guys like this that are good enough to draw enough defenders, or at least enough on the scouting report to say, hey, if we don't defend, this is what happened, where you have that across the field. It is a pick your poison. And again, to Mike Bobo's credit, that's what he tries to do is a pick your poison. We just got to get 14 to, start honing in on that, start being able to develop into, distributing the ball across that. And guys like this make that easier on him. Because that's my big thing is building guys like them through the supporting cast of the offense to make 14's job easier. So if he does get better, we can see it. That's the only thing I worry about is you want to have those bodies and guys that replicate, what Colbie Young, what Noah Thomas, what Zachariah Branch did in aggregate, meaning just on average across the board to make 14's development very apparent. That's my only concern for next year in terms of like contending. So hopefully we get more good news like that. 3 good players. Obviously that safety from East Carolina, really, really good. I'm hoping we hunt him down.
Yes. Well, looking at what I was going to put that comment up here from Chase. I honestly think UGA did not play Aguero to his strengths and play him at strong safety instead of nickel. I completely agree with you on that. I think he should have been the strong safety and not playing the nickel position. But again, you had Kyron Jones and Ja'Cory Thomas with leadership, and that goes back. Scott, your counterpart here that's on Scott Green 5790, does the safety coach need to be replaced? I mean, we spoke about that at the beginning of the show. I do think that that's something that needs to be looked at. T-Rob, I don't know if necessarily as good of a recruiter as he seems to be. I see that we have had regression in our secondary play that comes from the corners and from the safeties position. I do not understand continually in zone and man matchups that we do not put hands on or try to alter or reroute anybody that releases from the line of scrimmage anymore. Maybe that's just me from high school to college because the kids are too quick and you don't want to assist them in any movement you have. But I've learned when you knock a kid off the ball and reroute his ass, it's hard to get started back up again. And when you take somebody out of the window when you're looking to throw the 1-2-3 slant and you don't allow the inside release and you jack his jaw and you knock him off and reroute him, it makes the throw a little bit tougher.
Absolutely.
And whether you're in zone or in man, and I find it continuous that we do not do that. I don't know if that's not being coached. I don't know if that's something Coach Smart doesn't like to do, but I watch it continuously throughout ball games, and it makes no sense from the linebacker level to the nickel level to the corner level, even to the safety levels when they're covering in man. It just makes no sense to me. So that's something that needs to be evaluated. And that's something that Greeny said just a little bit earlier was that, we need to look and bring in these guys that can say, listen, this is what you need to do. And, kind of in a sense, it's like, working with someone that's going to basically be cut and dry and say, what you're doing is not very good. We need to fix this right here and we need to work on this. But honestly, from my standpoint, what I would love to have a coach who's hungry, wants to absorb stuff like a dry sponge, and wants to be an effective coach, effective X's and O's guy, effective technique guy, and teach him to be a good recruiter. I don't think I want it vice versa. I know a lot of people say that recruiting is a big essential key, but I want to take those kids, whether I got a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, no star, and be able to coach him effectively to make him the best player possible, and then work to become a good recruiter over time, because that comes with learning and throwing darts in the dark anyway to see what sticks. I mean, eventually you get better at something if you continue to practice it habitually. So I find it to be, I want to have a coach that's hungry, wants those X's and O's, and understands the development and the fundamental techniques of his position group, and then learns to become a good recruiter, than it being vice versa, being a good recruiter but not necessarily the best technique fundamental guy.
And that's what we're plagued with right now. I'm just going to tell people the God's honest truth. We are plagued with good, not great, great, not elite coaching that is great to elite at recruiting. And look, T-Rob has been – here's something I judge by. Fans will be honest with you if you actually see their reaction. No Bama fan was pulling their hair out when T-Rob had played both sides and had gone back to Bama for a counteroffer. And then when Georgia finally landed him, no one was burning down their shed. No one was, driving to Tuscaloosa to figure out what was going on. And that should tell you a lot. I mean, he was supposed to be kind of the stability coach, the experienced coach to help Glenn Schumann out, act in an active role when he's, making the actual calls. And again, like you said, Coach, I've just seen regression in too many areas. And that's the thing. I'm not asking to burn down the staff. I need someone from the outside that can get in Kirby's ear who, he trusts based on credentials, or like you said, another Fran Brown type. I think Fran Brown was a perfect answer at corners coach because, like you said, hungry. He's a great recruiter, but he cares more about the game. He's all about the technique and facilitating what coaches want. Basically, how do I answer what you want, coach? This is how I do it. And so, in the end of the day, I think there's 3 or 4 coaches that I think really have to have a sit down, especially if someone else is brought out in and said, "Look, coach, this is the reason you haven't won a playoff game in 3 years." Is these are the answers, because something has to change. And again, I know Kirby's stubborn. I know Kirby loves who he loves, and that is a huge character trait to have. And I wouldn't want it, too much the other way. But at some point, something has to give. This can't be we're going to smack our head against the wall and the wall won this time, but eventually we'll see that crack. It's like it's just not the way it's going to work in today's age of college football.
I'm personally interested to see if you think about it, that's what drove Nick Saban out. He was so stubborn in what he wanted to do that eventually the adaptation of what he needed to take it to in the next level, NIL and creating this, the concept of what they're dealing with right now was just too much for him to bear. He was a great football coach. We know he was the GOAT. He's the dynasty coach that you love to see and what the culture he built at Alabama. But when all of a sudden the paradigm shift changed in college football, you could just tell that's what drove him out, because no longer was the love of the game in getting better and developing guys in your program that loved your program. Now it's becoming more money driven, money hungry. Who's the best bidder? Who's the highest bidder? I don't really care about the culture of the program. I'll put that sticker on my helmet, wear that helmet 1 year, and if it don't work out, I'll take my ball and go somewhere else next year. There's no pride in being with a certain program. And what I'm interested to see, does Kirby fit the same mentality? Does he finally say, F it, and I don't want to be a part of this anymore because it's too mentally exhausting and I don't want to do it anymore? Or does he adapt to the times and go with this paradigm shift and start looking at those changes that he needs to make? Nothing says that he has to necessarily change his philosophy of coaching, because I think the culture and climate of what he does in establishing that at Georgia is unprecedented. You've seen that growth over the last decade. But when it comes to developing his players and looking at your coaches on your staff, I think that's also what you said is being hurt by the fact that we have good coaches, not great coaches. And unfortunately, we're beginning to see that play trickle down into those position groups as well. A lot of people want Glenn Schumann gone or want him to change. I'm thinking, what was different about Glenn Schumann in 2021 and 2022 when he was coaching N'Kobe Dean and Quay Walker and Channing Tindall versus the kids he's coaching now? Is it the coach or is it the players that he's coaching? He's playing with level, 4-star, 5-star kids out there. So what's the difference of his level of play this year versus when he was back in 2021, 22? You have to look at all the dominoes on the table and see. He played in front of basically an all-caliber, all-defensive NFL line that they're not playing in front of now. That's a big difference when you see that linebacker play of that time versus now. So there's a lot of little certain idiosyncrasies that you have to evaluate, but I do agree. I would really like to see some good news this year through all the social media outlets that Coach Smart is beginning to make that paradigm shift and make that adaptation that makes us feel better about where he's looking to go with the football program. And as a coach, if you, like I said, if you're not adapting, you're dying, and he needs to start adapting in that regard.
Yeah, and here's the way I frame it to other fans is single plays, big picture. So single plays is Glenn Schumann's issue. Misalignments, trying to get things right. But understand he's working with a really, really young defense. That's not excusing that he didn't make mistakes. That 3rd and 5 call, horrendous alignment. Totally agree. Hopefully that's something. And again, if he recognizes that, I guarantee you he won't do it again. But those mistakes have to be made by a young coach like him. Mm-hmm. The difference is when you have a coach that's really, really experienced and he's not adding anything to the staff. So it's like, what's your excuse? Right. And so I fully agree, guys. Just look at those single play mistakes, understand tight margins. That's why you made that mistake. It cost us versus, well, are we just getting better at development? Is this getting better in the whole picture? And to me, the ones that don't answer that second question are the ones that need to go.
Very well said, my friend. I tell you what, when I look at all the comments over here, I appreciate everybody who's been here with us for almost an hour. If you've been here through all three segments, we try to bring you just most relative stuff that's going on, the most relevant stuff that's going on, and love to talk about Georgia, but also look at to talk about the future of the program, considering we're not getting to see our team play tomorrow night when the semifinals begin. We're going to have to watch, Miami play an Ole Miss team and obviously in Indiana play an Oregon team. And that's going to be something that's hard to swallow, especially when you look at the two losses this year. We lose both by 3 points. So with all the errors, with all the discernment, with all the pearl clutching that we have done, and as poorly as I feel like we played against Ole Miss, we're fighting with them down to the wire, coming back from 10 points down and them having to kick a field goal with pretty much no time on the clock, where we had a chance to go in and score to basically win the ball game. Inside the 5-yard line there when we tied it up later in the game. So we appreciate you being with us tonight. Thank you for all the comments. We appreciate you being in here. Please make sure if you got any more questions, leave them with us. Me or Scott will definitely love to get back with you. Please make sure you hit the like button, get those notifications for Coach Hayes Hudl, for Head on a Swivel. For Scott Green, I'm Chris Hayes. We appreciate you being with us tonight. Take care. God bless. And as always, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.